Well, hello, old so-and-sos. It's Jaffe. Listen, I want to make a video about two comments that I've seen on the internet today that I have a bit of a different take than what is shaping up to be the general wisdom of about these topics. The first, and they both revolve around Xbox. The first one are the sales of Lost Judgment, which came out today, or at least in the UK. But usually it's indicative of sort of at least what's happening in America, unless you're talking FIFA or Madden. So UK sales come out, and Lost Judgment was number 4, and Lost Judgment did 90% of its sales over the weekend on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. Majority was PS5. And then 10%, only 10% on Xbox Series X. And there's a number of people kind of talking about this. It's weird they're not talking about where the hell is Kenna. Now, Kenna may not have shipped in the UK, but assuming it did, the fact that it's not up here is confusing. But let's move on from that. So Lost Judgment's hanging out at number 4, barely any sales for Xbox. And I get confused why this conversation comes up every single time this happens. Like, people don't expect this to happen, right? So we know, unless you're just looking to bash Xbox, when a game exists on Xbox Game Pass and retail, of course it's going to sell more at retail for the systems that don't have Game Pass, aka PlayStation. Why would it not? What would you expect to happen, right? But even in this case, people say, well, this is a bit of a different case, Jaffe. This is Lost Judgment, which is not on Game Pass. I don't know why I'm wearing these. Why is that still the case? And in that being the case, they're like, yeah, there's a problem with Game Pass. It's not letting people sell their games. Well, there's no doubt that if you put your game on Game Pass, at least like a launch game or whatnot, it probably isn't going to have the kind of sales you would get if you put it in retail, depending on the game, right? So like if you take a game like Descenders is still the poster child for, hey, they sold a lot and they were successful on Game Pass. I think if you're talking about a game that's like an indie game that no one really knows about and needs that little bump in recognition that they wouldn't get otherwise, I think going on Game Pass could result in more sales. But when you're getting into something like a third-party Sega game like Lost Judgment, I think it's Sega or Bandai or whatever. I think it's Sega. You have to assume that Sega has made a deal with Microsoft that says, look, we understand that we're not going to sell as many on Xbox. Because of that, we want to make sure that the deal with Game Pass is structured in such a way that you guys benefit because you have new content on Game Pass. Lost Judgment is not on Game Pass, but I'm saying in the cases where they are, we're not going to sell as much, so we want a bigger piece of the upfront, or we want, after X number of hours are played, we want a bonus or whatever, right? And Spencer's come out and said as much. He said, yeah, of course, all these deals are different. So what's interesting, though, is why, in the case of it not being on Game Pass, are people still not running out and buying it for their Xbox? And this is the part that I don't think people understand. And I don't know how to articulate this perfectly or even that strongly. I'm going to try. This may be rambly. I'm going to try not to ramble on this, but I've made this video twice now because I'm trying to explain the psychology that I think is at play here. So if you don't have Game Pass, right, or a subscription service that you've become dependent on or that you really enjoy or it's part of your gaming diet and habit, you're still in that cycle that you and we've all been trained to be in as consumers of video games for decades, which is a new game comes out. If you're interested and you're really interested, you want to play it right away, you go out and you pick it up. That makes sense if you haven't been weaned off that with Game Pass. Well, here's what I think Game Pass is doing. It's not that people aren't interested in Lost Judgment. It's that when you give them so many other options, okay, that it's just like the movies, right? Unless it's like, oh my God, I have to see the new Spider-Man. Oh my God, I have to see the new Fast and the Furious. I'm opening up Game Pass real quick. I want to show you something. then unless it's something short of that, there are movies that come out every weekend, and most people these days are like, I'll wait. Ticket sales, here, check it out. Ticket sales have been dropping for 17 years in the movies as people have gotten more and more used to watching stuff at home. First, bigger screens, surround sound, and then obviously subscription services and cutting cable and all that. The average moviegoer is like, I'm only going out now when it really makes sense. Now, don't worry about that. This is the pandemic. That's nothing. I mean, it's huge, but you know what I'm saying. But this is a trend that's been going on for almost 20 years. Okay, I think you're seeing the same thing. If Fast and the Furious came out on Netflix, Fast and Furious 10 came out on Netflix tomorrow or Friday, and it went out in theaters, sure, there would be some people who see it in theaters, but most people would say, I'll just watch it at home. Why would you not, right? Or if a movie comes out Friday that's not a big tentpole movie, let's say, like, what's the video game equivalent of Lost Judgment? I don't know. I'm just going to make something up. Let's say, Hitman's Bodyguard's Wife, whatever, just some middling B+ level action, or even Free Guy, right? Fun, high concept and all that. Well, there are people who are going to rush out and see it, but a lot of people will be like, I'll see that when it streams, because there's like 80 other things I haven't seen yet that I'll watch this weekend, right? That's why I think you're seeing things like Lost Judgment, even though they're not on Game Pass, also not selling, because Game Pass trains you not to buy games. It might train you to buy games in a different way. I've purchased DLC for the first time off Game Pass because I love Desperados 3. It may train you to buy more games because when a game's about to go away, and if it's like a keeper, you want to buy it. But yeah, I think most people aren't interested in buying games on Game Pass, just like most people, after they watch something on Netflix, don't have any interest in owning it. And so I again, the only real danger would be that if Microsoft hasn't taken this into account. And again, I don't think these are morons at Microsoft. They've been in business for 40-something years. They're one of the wealthiest companies on the planet. I think they have money guys that sit down, and psychologists that sit down and go, what do you think the behavior is going to be when we put this subscription service out there? How's it going to affect things? And then we have to structure deals around it. So that's number one I wanted to talk about. The second thing I wanted to talk about is release Xbox today. And don't come at me because you guys fucking know. Oh, I was going to show you this. Yeah, this is Xbox today. I opened up Xbox or Game Pass, and I was just really surprised because, again, this is what I was saying. Like, if you have this service and you get conditioned to use it a lot, in the last week, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are today's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games in the last week. 8 days, 9 days. Okay. Lost Judgment might be interesting, but unless you're a hardcore fan, I'm going to keep my $60. I'll play Lost Worlds. I'll play Origami, or I'll play, whatever. All right. So, Sacred Symbols, I love the guys at Sacred Symbols, you know that, but just because you like somebody and respect somebody, and I do, I respect Colin and Dustin and Chris, just because you do that, though, doesn't mean you can't disagree. So, they had a segment on Sacred Symbols that they put out today, and somebody on Twitter, I don't think I have it anymore, but somebody on Twitter was like going, there's real wisdom here, people should listen to this, and I click it, and it's the guys talking about how Sony is kind of, quote, doing it right when it comes to how they acquire companies and purchase companies and work with companies they own, and how Microsoft is just going around throwing their money around, and that's really bad. I see this argument a lot, and I got to say I don't agree with it. I don't really even understand it. So Sony's spin, and some of it's true and some of it's spin, Sony can't do what Microsoft does. And Microsoft so far can't do what Sony does. Their first party is nowhere near as good as Sony's first party, at least certainly in a certain genre. They're not even close. Well, other genres, who knows? Like racing, maybe they're better, but your mileage may vary. Regardless, though, Sony historically, yes, as Shuhei says, and Rhodey says, and all of them, they make relationships with these companies over the years, and they fold them into the process, and it's a good working relationship, and now you're part of the family. It's nice, it's tidy, it's even charming when you think about it like that. It's a nice piece of PR spin, and it also has the benefit of not being a lie. It's how it works, right? There was a story that came out today that they didn't pursue more games with Quantum Dream because they had some kind of rift over a fourth character in Detroit Become Human, right? And so I get that, okay? But that just because that works for Sony, the idea of buying a company that you haven't been in bed with for a long time, lots of businesses do that. You know who did that magnificently recently? Disney did that with Marvel. Marvel was released by Paramount. They never made a thing with Disney ever. The only thing Lucas ever made with Disney was a couple of theme park rides. Lucas has never released a movie as far as, if I remember, through Disney. Captain EO, he was a producer on at the park, but that's it. And if you read Bob Iger's book, which is a phenomenal book, by the way, who was the CEO of Disney until very recently, I wish he still was, as a fan of Disney, different video. He's like, look, man, these are, you got to do your due diligence. You got to figure out the people, figure out the structure. You got to go in there and figure out if it's a good fit for your company, right? But they hadn't worked together before. And this idea that, oh, you're just spending money to buy your way to success, that's just fanboy. I'm sorry, but everybody spends money to buy their way to success. If Todd Howard was coming free, you think Sony can't spend what Microsoft spends, but they still open up their checkbook whenever they can to get an exclusive, to hire someone like a Todd Howard. Or if Cory Barlog or Neil Druckmann came and said, I'm going to go direct movies, I don't want to do this anymore. And they felt Neil, and I'm sure they do, is really valuable. They'd probably say, what can we do to keep you? How about gross points after the first, profit, whatever. Not it wouldn't be gross. Gross points on $1, whatever. Or let's just pay you 3 times what you're making now, right? They're still paying their way to success. This isn't a charity. They just do it in a different way. What I will agree with Colin and Dustin, and I made a video about this over a year ago, which I think is what caused Phil Spencer to block me, is that, yeah, man, their management so far, maybe they've turned the corner. I don't know what's happening now. But so far, their management has been awful, just terrible. But whether or not they had worked with these companies before or not, that hasn't gotten any better. That has nothing to do with anything. Just because they could have made 20 games with Double Fine and then they bought Double Fine. I guess all that would have meant is that Double Fine figured out how to deal with their shit management. Again, their management may have fixed this. Psychonauts did come out. I know it was in development before them. I played the Halo beta this weekend. It was great. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that they have a real problem managing their first and second party teams from a standpoint of the proof being in the pudding, which is where are the games? Who launches hardware without a single exclusive game? It's a ridiculous thing, right? But that's almost a different topic. But the idea that just because they got companies and grew bigger by going around and buying things that were already up and running, Apple does it. I mean, every company uses the tools at their disposal to compete. And I just think it's really weird. I mean, hell, I do it. Colin's company would probably do it. Are you telling me that Colin currently has the money, or Colin's company, God damn it, what's it called? There's Sacred Symbols is the show. Last Media Standing? What Colin's great company that is growing and growing and growing wonderfully. Well, they just launched a new podcast, Defending Duke, a couple of months back or 8 months back about Xbox. Well, I'm sure that wasn't free. I'm sure they said this is what we can afford to compete, and that we don't want to spend any more, we don't want to spend any less, and let's go for it, right? I mean, everybody does that. The management thing, people have a point with. I made the point. Go back and look at this video. It's pretty aggressive, and I didn't mean to be a dick. I was just like stunned. They can't hire people away from other companies. We're not launching civilians to outer space. This is not like no one's done this before. This is like, yeah, it's hard. It's incredibly hard, but people have been doing it for years now. Go hire some fucking management talent. That's a different issue. But coming at them because they're choosing to spin their way and their way to success, it's what everybody does. It's what everybody does. So there you go. Not that Xbox needs me to defend it, but I did, sometimes when I hear a lot of that stuff, back to back to back, it just kind of makes me go, I don't really know if I can hear this and not comment. I hope you're well. I'll see you later. Goodbye.